Good evening, everyone. I hope all of you can hear me. And we will continue with our class on fallacies. So, in the last class, just for a quick revision, we defined a fallacy. So, this is session 2 of fallacies. My name is Dr. Surabhi Modi Sahai. I'm the CEO of Possible Education that runs Clat Possible. And continuing into part 2 of laws and reasoning of fallacies, which we took last week, we will study some more fallacies today. So, as I was saying in the last class, we redefined a fallacy. Basically, it's a violation of a criteria of a good argument. So, a good argument should be structurally sound. If it isn't, then it contributes to a structural fallacy. A good argument should have relevant premises. If there are no relevant premises, then it contributes to irrelevant premises fallacies. A good argument's premises should not just be relevant but acceptable to common people. It should be understood by them. So then we have an unacceptable premise fallacy. And a good argument should have a complete set of evidence for the conclusion. In the absence of a complete set of premises and evidence for the conclusion, we have insufficient premise fallacy. So I hope that is clear. Then we saw what all comes under fallacies of structure. We also went into some of these fallacies, for example, begging the question, which also has circular reasoning in it, right? Question begging definition, fallacies of inconsistency, incompatible premises, the two premises that don't go together. And then we also studied some formal fallacies of deductive logic and conditional logic, denying the antecedent, affirming the consequent, right? The names are not important, but you should be in a position to identify these questions. They could be direct questions of finding flaws in reasoning, or they could also come in parallel logic. So this question type is not unknown in the paper. In the paper, you are asked to choose an option that shows the same problem in argument, same flaw in logic as is shown in the question. So you could have a deductive logic question or a conditional logic question where there could be affirming the consequent fallacy. So it could say if P then Q, right? Q therefore P. So you have to now look for an option that does the same thing. Look for an option which shows if P then Q, Q therefore P. If this much is clear to all of you, say yes in the chat box. Great. Then we also have fallacies of irrelevant premises, which I have just shown you. Using wrong reasons, drawing the incorrect conclusion, genetic fallacy, rationalization, and all the different types of appeals. We did the appeals, right? And also rationalization. I'm not sure if we did that, but we will come up and do some of those fallacies, right? Unacceptable premises. Today we will see some of the fallacies from here, like equivocation, ambiguity, fallacy of accent, stressing on the wrong syllable, right? Then misuse of a vague expression, illicit contrast. That means the contrast is not existing, but the argument believes it to exist. So we'll take up fallacy of composition also today. Faulty analogy is ought. Wishful thinking. Wishful thinking is basically, where a hypothesis contrary to fact kind of a fallacy, where you assume or hope something and then conclude that something to be true. It's not factually true, but you assume it to be true. Misuse of a principle and argument from fallacy. Insufficient premises fallacies usually come in the form of an insufficient sample or data which is unrepresentative, data which shows only a small group, does not represent everyone, so you get direct questions from there. Arguing from ignorance, right? There you do not have enough data, but you are still making a strong claim. And contrary to fact hypothesis, which is very similar to wishful thinking, which we did in the previous case. Causal fallacies, we will spend time on a few of these today as well. Gamblers, causation correlation fallacy, these are direct questions in your paper, whether it's strengthen, weaken, or finding of the flaw. Post hoc ergo propter hoc, because it happened afterwards, it is the effect of it. That's how post hoc ergo propter hoc translates. And of course, we have some other common fallacies: ad hominem, two wrongs do not make a right, straw man, red herring, slippery slope. So we spend time on structural fallacies. So I'm going to move quickly from here. We had done the begging the question, petitio principii, right? Claim X, assume X is true, therefore X is true. So we spend a lot of time on this, as well as tautology, which is circular reasoning. Now, circular reasoning does not usually come up directly, but it can come in as an option. Most of the questions from your previous year papers, you will see that circular reasoning is an option there. So inconsistency also, where two arguments or the premises of an argument are inconsistent with each other. All this we had done. Then we had done the various appeals. Something is new, hence better. Someone is poor, hence he or she must be speaking the truth. Right? If something has been going on for a long time, therefore it must be correct. Fallacy, appeal to tradition. Appeal to wealth, believing someone because that person is wealthy. Argument ad baculum, which is appeal to force, appeal to the stick. Right? So, depending on coercion, threat, appeal to authority, this is illicit authority. Because someone is famous and someone is agreeing with something, therefore that person is right. This is also known as a bandwagon or ad populum. Bandwagon or ad populum basically means that because everyone, majority believes it, it must be true. Now we come to the next category. So I'm going to take up some very, very zoom out, sorry, I actually zoomed in. Can you check? Next page. Okay. Should I zoom in or zoom out? No, stop.
आप रुकेगा एक जगह.
स्टॉप कभी नहीं हटा है, ऑटो फोकस पे ही है. Okay. All right. So as I was saying, I will be taking up some common fallacies that come in your paper. The whole list of fallacies is only available to Clat Possible students in our classrooms, right? So I'll be taking up a few relevant ones, or let's say the most important ones. And the quiz on fallacies and the complete list we will be discussing in our classrooms with all the CP students. I hope that is okay. But I will take up faulty analogy as a first fallacy for today. Okay, so it's still not visible. स्क्रीन लेयर हटा दिया है, अब चेंज करो. स्क्रीन 0 लेयर है ना. Right. All right, so let's take up faulty analogy. This is a very, very interesting fallacy, children. Faulty analogy says that just because two things or two events are alike in some known respects, they must also be alike in other known respects. So if 1 is a number and 2 is a number, so both of them are alike in the respect that they are numbers. Faulty analogy will assume that 1 and 2 are the same. So are 1 and 2 the same? So are 1 and 2 the same? Let's take another example. If we can put a man on the moon, why can't we find a cure for common cold? In fact, this was an argument which was doing the rounds this time when COVID was there. So lots and lots of memes came up. We have gone into space, we have landed on the moon, we are finding life on Mars. So why can't we find a cure for COVID or flu or common cold? So is this a valid argument? You tell me. So what is the similarity between putting a man on the moon and, finding cure for common cold? What is the similarity between these two phenomena? Right. The similarity between these two phenomena is that they both are related to science. They both are related to science, isn't it? So while they are both scientific endeavors, does that make them equal? Does that make one thing leading to another? So does it make it necessary that because we can go to the moon, because we have rockets, we should also have a cure for a virus? So faulty analogy, the previous example that I showed you, this is just to explain what it means. But the actual arguments which you get are like this. In fact, they are so compelling. And so compelling in the sense, most of us also argue like this, Oh, he has enough money to go on a cruise, but he doesn't have enough money to pay the salaries. It's not such a simple argument. While it is morally very, very, compelling, but things are far more complex than that. So false analogy or faulty analogy also comes under the super head of oversimplification. That just because two things are similar in some respect, they must be similar in all respects. Right? So there are lots of questions like this which we do in the classroom. One question which I am immediately reminded of is a question which said that while we, do not allow people to easily share coal and ores, but the same is not true for plants. I hope you remember this question. So here the author feels that just like coal and ore, if they are natural things, plants are also natural things. So if we do not share coal and ore, why do we share plants? You know, for plants, we don't take money. We can pick up a nice plant and bring it home with us. Can you do that for a diamond? Can you go to a diamond mine and, you know, pick up diamonds and bring them home? You won't reach home, by the way. So this question is a common question which we also take up in the classroom. So relate all these questions with the fallacy and they will become clearer. Right? So I'm sorry right at the outset for this meme. So again, this is faulty analogy. These two people must be alike because they both have a mustache. It's not meant to offend anyone, right? But, you know, something like this. Next, of course, we take up false dilemma. So as I said, bifurcation is like false dilemma. But I'm going to take up only selected fallacy discussion over here. The complete list we will be doing in the classrooms. Right? Okay. So false dilemma basically means that you make two options for an outcome and both the options, you just say that there are only two options existing and both the options have a negative consequence. You make it impossible for the person to choose. So this comes under bifurcation. Bifurcation itself is a fallacy, right? Bifurcation itself is a fallacy where it says that you only give two alternatives for an outcome. So that's bifurcation. In bifurcation, if you create two impossible outcomes and two impossible alternatives and then say, boss, choose one. There is no third thing. It's not that you criticize US and then also live in it. This option is not there. So this, of course, shows USA, love it or leave it. But we have heard it here also in our context. Haven't we? So what is you have done the Indian equivalent of this as well? Either don't have a problem in India or go to Pakistan. Have you heard of this narrative? So this fallacious narrative, which logic over the years has said is false, is doing rounds. So you can imagine how much we need this class, how much all of us at least have to understand wrong logic, wrong arguments from what is correct. Right? At least as educated young adults of the country. So it's not just for a CLAT paper, it's for your whole future and for you to bring some sense into the way we exist. So bifurcation means the fault of just giving two alternatives, suppressing other alternatives. Under bifurcation, we have false dilemma and we also have a suppressed correlative. So as I said, false dilemma I'm doing here, suppressed correlative we will take up in the classroom because on this platform it's impossible to teach the whole class. So false dilemma means giving two impossible alternatives to people and saying only these two are available. Right? So this is false dilemma. We use it in advertising for sales. So wherever I have to buy votes, I have to buy, I have to sell, I have to buy votes, or I have to sell. So you can see fallacious arguments everywhere. In fact, inconsistent and insufficient premises are there in ads, you know. This oil is 100 times better. This oil is 100 times better. Boss, 100 times better than what? 100 times better than, you know, other oils, 100 times better than aloo, 100 times better than Delhi, 100 times better than what? Right? So here also for MasterCard, there are some things money can't buy. This is where this ad was a rage in the 2000s. For everything else, there is MasterCard. So two false outcomes. So either it's MasterCard or it's something beyond money. Two impossible alternatives, as you can see. So I hope this is clear. I'm going to skip equivocation and come to masked man. Again, this is a very, very political thing. So masked man fallacy says the substitution of identical designators in a true statement can lead to a false one. So the masked man fallacy has a very interesting story, right? It is based on the story where, let's say on Halloween, you see a masked man, but you don't recognize him, right? Because the man is wearing a mask. But it is later on revealed that the masked man was your father, right? So isn't there a catch here? When you saw the masked man, you did not know who it was. But if I substitute the word masked man with your father, will you say that I do not know who my father was? Right? So let's say that you are driven to a court of law and you are asked, so Raj, let's say your name is Raj. So Raj, did you know the masked man? And you say no. Now the lawyer cleverly substitutes masked man with your father and says, oh, so you're saying that you don't know your father? So what has the lawyer done? She has illegally substituted two terms. Yes, the truth is they are for the same person. But by changing the two terms, the whole context is getting changed. Would you agree? So is it correct to just midway change two terms without knowing the repercussions that it would bring in? Right? So let's see some more examples of the masked man fallacy. So you can read these examples here. The masked man is Mr. Hyde. The witness believes that the masked man committed the crime. Therefore, the witness is saying that Mr. Hyde committed the crime. Is this correct? And it's converse. The witness believes that the masked man committed the crime. The witness doesn't believe that Mr. Hyde committed the crime. Therefore, Mr. Hyde is not the masked man. Or if we say the masked man is Mr. Hyde, the witness testifies that the masked man committed the crime. Therefore, the witness has testified that Mr. Hyde has committed the crime. Are these the same things? So can I go in and substitute the two terms with each other? So if a witness has testified that the masked man has committed the crime, it is not the same as the witness testifying that Mr. Hyde has committed the crime. It's not as if the witness has testified that the masked man is Mr. Hyde. So a very critical piece linking the masked man to Mr. Hyde is missing. Hence, it is a fallacy. So in between an argument, I cannot go and substitute terms. Isn't it an interesting fallacy, children? Do we try to sometimes be clever and do it? We try to do it at home with our younger siblings. You know, where you try to tease them that, you know, maybe mama or papa made something at home. Papa made chicken or mama made rice, and you ask your little sibling, did you like it? And say, no, oh, you're saying that mama and papa did not cook well. So we try to substitute it midway. Poor guys then get flummoxed, you understand, puzzled. So all of us are inherently evil. All of us commit these fallacies to suit our purpose. But I hope we will become better than that. Last example of, masked man fallacy. Sometimes the change is not a problem. So when can I substitute? We can. So let's say that Mark Twain has written Huckleberry Finn. Mark Twain is the pen name of Sam Clemens. Therefore, Sam Clemens has written Huckleberry Finn. So this is fine. If I'm stating it as a fact, it is fine. So if I say that the masked man committed the crime, it was proven in the court that the masked man is Mr. Hyde. Therefore, Mr. Hyde committed the crime. This part is correct. I hope all of you agree. Right? However, we cannot say that the witness is saying Mr. Hyde committed the crime, because the witness did not say any such thing. Similarly, you know, you cannot say that Joe. So over here, Joe said Mark Twain wrote Huckleberry Finn. It does not follow that Joe said Sam Clemens wrote Huckleberry Finn. So when I state it as a fact, it is correct. But if Joe is saying that Mark Twain wrote Huckleberry Finn, I cannot say Joe is saying that Sam Clemens wrote Huckleberry Finn. So I cannot attribute it to someone. I cannot attribute it to someone. Got it, everyone? Next we have fallacy of composition. So I'm going to skip definitional retreat because I promised to do the main fallacies today. Again, for all our children at Clat Possible, we will be doing this in the class. So let's come to fallacy of composition. This is something which is again an important fallacy, and you get questions on it. And it's quite an interesting fallacy. In fact, learning fallacies, I think, is the most interesting exercise in critical reasoning. It makes your reasoning better, and it shows you the true picture of what is happening to logic in the world. Right? So fallacy of composition, very simple definition. If assuming that something is true of the part of a whole, must be true of the whole, right? So these are fun examples. The logical form is, if A is a part of B, and if A has property X, B will also have property X. This is false. It is just like saying every brick in that building weighs less than a pound, therefore the whole building weighs less than a pound. Funny, isn't it? Or hydrogen is not wet, oxygen is not wet, therefore H2O, which is water, is not wet. Can you say that? And the last example, probably I picked it up from some Babaji. Your brain is made up of molecules. Molecules are not conscious, therefore your brain is not conscious. Or I think I heard the opposite. Your brain is conscious, your brain is made up of molecules, so each and every molecule of your brain is conscious or something. Right? So this is fallacious reasoning. It overlooks the aspect that whatever is true of the part, when the two parts combine, then the whole changes, or the whole may change. When I say whole, I mean WHOLE. right? So whatever is true of the parts may not be true of the whole, because when the whole changes, when the parts combine, then the whole can change. If this is clear, then please say yes in the chat box. So the opposite of fallacy of composition is sweeping generalization. Will you remember it? The opposite of fallacy of composition is sweeping generalization. Sweeping generalization says the ulta. What is true of the whole will also be true of the part. Or what is true in most instances will be true in all instances. Right? That is sweeping generalization. The opposite of fallacy of composition. Right? Then we have if by whiskey, which we'll take up in the classrooms, children. Naturalistic and moralistic fallacy also I'm going to skip for the time being. We'll take up in the classroom. And we come to insufficient premises, where I will take up hypothesis contrary to fact. Now in hypothesis contrary to fact basically means that I am only making a hypothesis. The whole argument is based on if, and there is no proof that it has happened in reality, but I conclude as if it has happened in reality. So it says if event X happened, then Y would have definitely happened. So this fallacy means the whole argument is based on speculation. For example, John, if you had taken a shower more often, you would still be dating Tina. Is it necessary that if John had taken a shower more often, he would still be dating Tina? Because this is only based on an if. There is no actual fact written over here. It's not as if Tina said it. It's only speculative. And it discounts all other reasons. Or if you took that course on the CD player repair, you would be doing well and gainfully employed right now. So something again that maybe you know, your parents and your aunts and uncles probably tell you all the time. अगर तुम उस स्कूल चले गए होते जहां हम तुम्हारा एडमिशन कराए थे, आज तुम्हारी जिंदगी कहां से कहां होती. या अगर तुम लॉ के चक्कर में ना पड़ते, इंजीनियरिंग कर रहे होते, आज तुम गूगल के सीईओ होते. So this is something which is not unknown to any of us. And trust me, you will keep on listening it later on also. अगर तुमने उस लड़की या उस लड़के से शादी कर ली होती जिसे हमने तुम्हारा रिश्ता कराया था, आज तुम मंत्री होते. So this is never ending, you know. It goes on and on and on and on. So on the one hand, your parents will be feeding your husband or your wife, beta mera lal, meri beti ka pati. And on the other hand, behind his back or her back, they'll tell you, अगर तुमने उससे शादी की होती तो आज तुम महारानी होती. You know, from experience. So, not unknown to us, but hypothesis contrary to fact means drawing a conclusion on an if statement. Drawing a conclusion on an if statement. Right? I hope all of you will remember this. So next we have faulty cause. So I'm going to skip hasty and come to causal fallacies. I'm going to skip Luddic fallacy. It's a very interesting one, but I'll save it for the classroom. And come to faulty cause. Again, a very important fallacy because you get strengthen, weaken, all sorts of questions on this. So faulty cause says just because something happened afterwards does not mean it happened because of it. So look at this very interesting example. As more and more firemen are fighting the fire, the bigger is the fire. So are the firemen causing the fire? Isn't it completely bizarre? The fire is bigger because probably something burst inside or it just spread, right? It became bigger after the firemen started fighting. It does not mean that the firemen have caused it. And you must have again seen it so often. I was okay, but जब हम उस डॉक्टर से मिले और उसकी दवाई खाने के बाद हमारी तबीयत और बिगड़ गई. So the doctor is killing me. No, your तबीयत has worsened because, because the disease has progressed. You probably met the doctor late. Now after you've taken the medication has just gone in, the disease is progressing. They are two independent incidents. Right? So what must be happening? These are merely coincidences. They are not cause effect. So post hoc ergo propter hoc or faulty cause means either seeing coincidence as cause or correlation as cause. Right? Not that the doctor was trying to kill you and take तुम्हारी property hazam karna चाह रहा था. It's because the disease progresses naturally. The medication has just gone in. So by the time the medication has effect, by then the disease will also progress. So it's a mere coincidence or parallel action and not cause effect related. So for many arguments, you'll get exactly the same arguments, maybe a little more complex looking because the language will be more complex, but same structure. And how do you strengthen or weaken it? You strengthen or weaken it by showing that this is merely correlation or coincidence. They are not cause effect. Right? So, wrong direction, reverse causation, interchanging of cause and effect. We have done that in a very big way in our strength and weaken classes. I hope you know that. Gambler's fallacy, I'm going to skip for the time being and come straight to two wrongs do not make a right. So can you give me this example? Last time I gave you the example of two wrongs do not make a right. So every time you protest a lynching or a killing, they call you out. Where were you when this person was getting killed, or where were you when in Bangladesh Hindus were getting killed? I wasn't in a Bangladesh. I'm not a Bangladeshi citizen. I'm an Indian citizen. Right? Or where were you when this happened in Kashmir, or where were you when this happened in the Punjab? I wasn't born. I hope those who were born did something about it. But if they did not do anything about it, does that mean I also won't do anything about it? So two wrongs do not make a right. It is also known as whataboutery. I hope you have heard this term. It's many times it's given in the newspapers. Right? So just because something bad happened then does not mean I have to do something bad now to counter it. Right? And by doing another bad against that group, or the so-called group, you are not going to make right by the first group. So two wrongs do not make a right. Again, it's such a lovely time to teach fallacies, children, because so I can give you hundreds of examples. I can give you hundreds of examples that yes, Akshat, that's correct. Israel, we suffered the Holocaust, so our actions even today are justified. That's terrible, a dictator killing, the whole minority group of people or a genocide being committed is terrible, terrible, terrible. But the answer is not a genocide now committed by you, you know. So it's again very complex, but definitely it is wrong to argue that just because you did not do anything then, now you cannot say it now. Right? So this is what we are seeing. In fact, last few years I have had a ball teaching fallacies because there's no dearth of examples. You know, every country saw a great person at its helm, starting with Trump and everything, and it was lovely teaching fallacies. All right, so I'm sure all of you know ad hominem or damning the source, killing an argument by simply killing the person. Right? I mean killing figuratively. Oh, you cannot answer this because you are a girl. Oh, look who's talking. You know, so this also means look who's talking. Look who's talking. You know, you flunked class 3. What are you talking now? So this is completely wrong. You're attacking the person. You have to attack the argument. You have to say you are wrong because your argument says this, this, this. You don't have to say that, boss, your face is a fallacy. So fallacy is you're wrong because, I mean, this is the fallacy. It's actually a funny meme. So this is completely wrong. You're wrong because you're ugly. And attack is even worse. You are wrong and you are ugly. So imagine. So this is basically, you know, ad hominem. Attacking the person happens all the time on our national television. You attack the person's religion. You say, boss, oh my God, your religion has 200 kids per head. So you can't talk about this new bill. So naturally you are wrong because you are ugly is terribly wrong. You have to say you are wrong because this is what you argued. And imagine this is another level. So this is what happens on our national television all the time. We keep attacking each other. One political party neta attacks the other neta all the time. Oh, in your regime you did this. So 2 wrongs make a right. Oh, you keep quiet. In your regime you did this. You know, nobody talks about issues. Nobody talks. I've never heard an issue being discussed for so many years now on primetime television. You know, it's absolutely amazing. I don't watch it anymore. So another meme. It's funny, but it's terribly wrong. Terribly funny, I tell you. Okay, let's go to a very, very interesting fallacy. I'm going to skip straw man for the time being. We'll do it in the class. This is straw man. Okay, let's go to a very interesting fallacy. Also called, which is the slippery slope. Also called snowball argument or domino theory. So it is basically one step or action is taken. It will invariably lead to similar steps or actions, the end results of which are negative. So this basically means, let me go back to parents. Our actual logical fallacies begin at home. As you must have heard, charity begins at home. So again, I'm sure all of you have witnessed it. I have witnessed it, and I think I also do it as a parent. This is Indian parenting, and I am a definite Indian parent. So I also call it the parental fallacy. You know, so let's assume that you got a tattoo and went home, right? And your parents see it, either or, whichever parent is more prone to dramatics. Let's take that. So your dad or your mom sees it. So I'll call it parent, gender neutral. And then they said, वाह बेटा, आज tattoo बनवा के आए हो. कल नोज पियर्स करा के आओगे, परसों टंग पियर्स करा के आओगे, फिर गांजा लेके आओगे घर पे, फिर ये करोगे, उसके बाद सड़क पे गोली लेके घूमोगे, उसके बाद let's assume it's Indian Hindu parent or whatever, उसके बाद मुसलमान से शादी कर लोगे, फिर तो पाकिस्तान ही चले जाओगे. You know, so it begins with that. So slippery slope basically means that you begin with this. Just because you got a tattoo, your parent will believe that, boss, there's no end now. Now my child is a gangman or into gang wars, will probably, be into drugs, marry out of the religion, or not marry, or worse still, marry the same gender partner, and then settle happily in Pakistan. So, yes, how many of you have already heard this? Yes, Archana, Meena, that's true. This I have heard. I think I may have used it on my kid also. अच्छा आज तुम्हें 10 रुपए चाहिए, कल तो तुम मेरा पर्स लूट लोगे. I'm making fun of this, but Indian parenthood is in our genes. Once we become parents, we do the exact things we hate in our parents. I'm seeing it live. I'm a very different person on screen and in the classroom, but I'm a very, very different person at home with my kid. I am just what I criticize. So, full disclosure on screen. Great, yes. आज लॉ पढ़ना है, कल बार एग्जाम के इलेक्शन में हिस्सा लोगे, फिर नेतागिरी करोगे, सिविल सर्विसेज तो होगी नहीं उससे, और उसके बाद खून खराबा करोगे, राइटिंग कराओगे, और फिर प्रधानमंत्री बन जाओगे. Slippery slope. Yes, I know. In fact, so this is parental fallacy. This is what you will do a few years from now when you become happy parents. So this is an argument which is an actual argument in an actual newspaper, right? If we allow gay marriage, the next thing we know, people will want to marry their dogs or their cats, or what about their pigs? Right? This is an actual argument. I was aghast when I read it. So yes, I'm prone to dramatics as a parent, but of course I know I'm not an intolerant person at all, even in parenting. So that way I am not like this. But this is something which we saw and it's absolutely despicable. This is something I won't do. I'll be prone to dramatics, but not intolerance of any sort. Right? Great. So slippery slope is always fun to teach. And then we have red herring fallacy. This is again something which is not unknown to us. That's again not parents' fault at all. It's actually the kids' fault because they always want things. So red herring basically means diverting attention. I'm sure all of you have heard it as a phrase, heard it as an expression that is being used. So I want that toy. Oh, let's go home. There's something very nice waiting for you, and there's nothing waiting for you. So this kid says, Mama, I want that toy. No, honey, let's rush home. There's something very nice I have for you. So this is basically diversion. So Trump, again, red herring, diverting attention by bringing in something which is completely unrelated. Right? Yes, Akshita, very, very nice. It's Agatha Christie's fallacy. It's actually every detective's fallacy. So red herring, basically confusing the issue. We have seen it happen so much in our Indian media. There is any bill has to be passed. So to divert attention away from the bill, they'll show some terrorist getting killed somewhere on the border, or they'll show some students chanting anti-national slogans and divert your attention from the bill, and the bill will be passed. So tricks that are used all the time that we see happening. So red herring is basically that. And then of course certain journalists started calling it out that, boss, this is just a way to divert attention. So we start arguing about a minor issue and a major issue is slipped from under our noses. So any tactics, for example, I don't know Putin, so Donald Trump basically said this, we have no deals in Russia, and then red herring, Obama can make a deal with Iran, you know. So this is red herring. I'm going to skip divine and then come for the last one. We have had enough of parental criticism and this thing today. So let's go to one fallacy that you have done, right? Proof by assertion or argumentum ad nauseam or argumentum ad infinitum. This is something that you do all the time, even now when you are absolutely camels, you know, tall and big, and basically right up till you've attained voters' age, right? So if the marriage amendment bill doesn't come through or whatever, then some of you have attained marriageable age. So proof by assertion means constantly saying the same thing. No, I want to do it. Mama, I have to go. You don't understand. I have to go. So you're not adding anything new to the argument. In simple language, in plain Hindi, it's called zid karna. And then you lie down on the floor and start sulking and, you know, till your demand is fulfilled. So be honest, how many of you do this? Just repeating the same thing over and over and over again till your parents are so sick of you that, you know, that they just concede defeat. So own up now, because many of you have given me lots of stuff about your parents. Now it's the time to own up to your flaws as well. Yes, I know there are many more of you. You try to act very mature. Even when you become lawyers and argue in courts, at home you will still be arguing by proof of assertion or argumentum ad infinitum. Yes, it's very effective, trust me. I'm again speaking from experience. All right, guys. So I hope that you got all the fallacies that we completed today. If there is any fallacy that you haven't understood, please let me know and I'll be happy to repeat it. Otherwise, I'll see you next week in the classroom with a sheet on fallacies and also with some missing fallacies that from here we will take it up in the classroom. Right? Sample paper has not come out. I'm not sure if it will. But very soon you will write mock AILET at Clat Possible. Great. So, this is it from my side today. You guys have a great evening ahead. And I will see you with a sheet on flaws in the next class. Right? I had a lot of fun teaching you fallacies today. And I hope you did too. Okay. Thank you so much. I'm glad you're using my fallacies, not my, but the fallacies you learned today on me. That's what I like best about you. You learn something and then you straight away use it on your teacher. Thank you so much. Love you all. Have a great evening ahead.